Johnny Carson sat alone in that hotel room with a bottle of pills in his hand and nothing left to lose. It was 3:47 a.m. on November 8th, 1963, and the man who would become the king of late-night television was about to end his own life. Nobody knows this story. The Carson family buried it. NBC never spoke of it, but what happened in the next 3 hours would change everything. And the person who saved Johnny Carson that night was someone you have never heard of. This is the final secret Johnny kept until his death. November 1963. While America was still reeling from President Kennedy's assassination, Johnny Carson was drowning in his own private tragedy. His first marriage to Jody Wolcott had just imploded in the most public, humiliating way possible. The divorce papers cited his drinking, his affairs, his obsession with work over family. Jody took their 3 sons and left. Johnny had begged her to stay. She refused. His career was in shambles, too. The Tonight Show offer was still months away. He was doing game shows, filling in for other hosts, taking any gig that paid. But in the entertainment industry, everyone could smell desperation. The phone calls were getting fewer. His agent was losing faith. Jack Parr was still dominating late night, and Johnny was just another failed comedian in a city full of them. The drinking had gotten worse, not the social drinking that everyone did in the 60s. This was different. Johnny would wake up shaking, need a drink just to function, then spend the day trying to hide how much he was consuming. He had started missing tapings, showing up late, forgetting lines. The word was getting around Hollywood. Johnny Carson is unreliable. Johnny Carson is washed up. Johnny Carson is done. That November night, Johnny checked into the Roosevelt Hotel in Hollywood under a fake name. He told nobody where he was going. He left no note. He just wanted it to be over. The pain, the failure, the crushing weight of knowing he had destroyed his family and his career. He had bought the sleeping pills 3 days earlier from a doctor who asked no questions. Now they sat on the nightstand next to an empty whiskey glass. Johnny poured himself one more drink. His hands were shaking so badly that he spilled half of it. He looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. 38 years old, hollow eyes, 3 days stubble. The charming smile that had gotten him through 1,000 shows was nowhere to be found. This was not how it was supposed to end. He had dreamed of being the biggest name in television since he was a kid doing magic tricks in Norfolk, Nebraska. Now he was just another Hollywood cautionary tale. He opened the pill bottle. 32 capsules spilled onto the bed. He had researched this. He knew how many it would take. He knew it would be painless if he did it right. He just had to swallow them, lie down, and let everything fade away. No more pain, no more failure, no more disappointing everyone who had ever believed in him. Johnny picked up the first pill, and then someone knocked on the door. Johnny froze, his heart hammered in his chest. Nobody knew he was here. He had registered under the name John Marshall. He had paid cash. Who could possibly be knocking at 3:47 in the morning? The knock came again, louder this time, more insistent. "Room service," a voice called through the door. "I have your order, sir." Johnny had not ordered anything. He set the pills down and walked slowly to the door, his mind foggy from the whiskey. He was about to send whoever it was away when he opened the door and saw a young man standing there with a rolling cart. The man was maybe 25 years old, thin as a rail, wearing a white jacket that was 2 sizes too big for him, and his face, the moment he saw Johnny, went completely white. "Oh my God," the young man whispered. "You are Johnny Carson." Johnny tried to close the door, but the young man put his hand out to stop it. "Wait, please. I am so sorry. I have the wrong room. I was supposed to deliver this to 8:47, not 9:47. But Mr. Carson, I cannot believe it is really you. I watch you every time you are on television. You are the funniest man alive." The words hit Johnny like a physical blow. The funniest man alive? If this kid only knew what he had just interrupted, if he only knew what was sitting on that bed behind him. "I need you to leave," Johnny said, his voice hoarse. But the young man was not listening. He was staring at Johnny with the kind of wide-eyed admiration that Johnny had not seen in months. "Mr. Carson, I know this is crazy, but I am a comedian too." "Well, I am trying to be. I do stand up at the clubs when I am not working here. I have been studying your timing, your delivery, everything. You are the reason I moved to Los Angeles. Kid, I really need you to go. Please, just give me 2 minutes. Let me tell you one joke, just one. If you laugh, great. If you do not, I will leave and never bother you again. I promise." There was something in the young man's voice, a desperation that Johnny recognized because he had heard it in his own voice 1,000 times, the desperation of someone who needed validation more than air, someone who was hanging on by a thread and thought that one laugh, one moment of recognition might save them. Johnny should have closed the door, should have sent him away, should have gone back to those pills and finished what he started, but something made him step aside. "You have got 2 minutes," Johnny said. The young man pushed his cart into the hallway and stepped into the room. He saw the whiskey bottle, the pills scattered on the bed, the curtains drawn tight against the world. And Johnny saw the moment of recognition in his eyes, the understanding of what he had just walked into. The young man's name was Richard Jansen. He had come to Hollywood from Cleveland 6 months ago with $300 and a dream. He was sleeping on a friend's couch and working double shifts at the Roosevelt just to make rent. He performed at open mics every Tuesday and Thursday, at a dive bar in North Hollywood, where the audience was usually 5 drunks and a bartender who hated comedians. He had been rejected by every agent in town. He was exactly where Johnny had been 10 years ago, and somehow, standing in that hotel room at 4 in the morning, Richard Jansen started to tell jokes. The first joke was terrible, a hacky bit about airplane food that Richard delivered with shaking hands and a voice that cracked halfway through the punchline. Johnny did not laugh. He just stood there, arms crossed, waiting for this to be over. But Richard kept going. The second joke was better. Something about his landlord that had actual structure, a real setup and payoff. Johnny felt the corner of his mouth twitch. Not quite a smile, but something. By the third joke, Richard had found his rhythm. He was doing a bit about working room service, about the crazy things people ordered at 3 in the morning, about a guest who had asked him to bring up a tuxedo and a birthday cake at 2 a.m. because he wanted to propose to himself in the mirror. It was absurd and weird, and somehow it worked. Johnny laughed, actually laughed. A real, genuine laugh that he had not felt in weeks. Richard saw it, and his whole face lit up. He kept going, joke after joke, bit after bit. Some landed, some crashed. But he was fearless. He was dying up there in that hotel room, and he did not care because he was performing for Johnny Carson, and that was all that mattered. 20 minutes passed, then 40. Johnny sat down on the edge of the bed, moved the pills aside without thinking about it, and just listened. Richard talked about his mother, who thought comedy was a waste of time, about his ex-girlfriend who left him for a dentist, about the audition where he forgot every joke he had ever written and just stood there sweating for 5 minutes straight. He made failure funny. He made pain hilarious. He made Johnny forget, just for a moment, why he had come to this room. "You are good," Johnny finally said. "You are really good." "Why has nobody signed you?" Richard shrugged. "Same reason nobody wants to sign any of us. There are 10,000 comedians in this city, and maybe 5 spots that matter. I am just trying to be one of the 5. But honestly, Mr. Carson, I do not know if I am going to make it. I am running out of money. I am running out of time. I am running out of reasons to keep trying." Johnny looked at this kid, this desperate, talented, struggling comedian, and saw himself, saw every failure, every rejection, every moment of doubt that had led him to this hotel room with a bottle of pills. And something shifted inside him. "You want to know the truth," Johnny said quietly. "I was going to kill myself tonight. Before you knocked on that door, I was about to swallow every one of those pills and end it. My marriage is over. My career is over. I have got nothing left." Richard stared at him, the smile dropping from his face. "Mr. Carson, I had no idea. I am so sorry." "Do not be sorry." Johnny stood up and walked to the window. He pulled back the curtain and looked out at Los Angeles, at the city lights stretching out forever in the darkness. "You just saved my life. You do not even realize it, but you did. You reminded me why I do this, why any of us do this. Because making someone laugh, even for a second, even in the darkest moment that matters, that is worth staying alive for." Richard did not know what to say. He just stood there, this skinny kid in an oversized jacket, looking at one of his heroes falling apart in front of him. They talked until sunrise. Johnny ordered actual room service, coffee and sandwiches that neither of them really ate. Richard told him about every dream he had, every fear that kept him up at night. Johnny told him things he had never told anyone, about his father who never thought he was good enough, about the panic attacks before every show, about the imposter syndrome that made him feel like a fraud even when the audience was laughing. "Listen to me," Johnny said as the sky started turning pink outside the window. "You are going to make it. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but you are going to make it. And when you do, I want you to remember this night. I want you to remember that sometimes the only thing standing between you and the end is one more person who believes in you." Richard nodded, tears in his eyes. "And what about you, Mr. Carson? What are you going to do?" Johnny looked at the pills still scattered on the bed. Then he walked over, swept them into his hand, and flushed them down the toilet. "I am going to keep trying. I am going to stop drinking. I am going to fix my life. And someday when I have my own show, I am going to remember this night too." 6 months later, Johnny Carson became the host of The Tonight Show. He quit drinking, he rebuilt his relationship with his sons, he became the biggest star in television history, and he never forgot Richard Jansen. But Richard never made it. He kept performing, kept trying, kept working room service to pay the rent. He got a few small gigs, a couple of commercial roles, but the big break never came. By 1982, he was 43 years old, still doing open mics, still dreaming, and then he got sick. Pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave him 6 months. Richard wrote Johnny a letter. He did not expect a response. Johnny Carson was the king of late night now, untouchable, unreachable. But 3 days later, Johnny called him personally. "I want you on the show," Johnny said. "I want America to hear your story." On April 14, 1982, Richard Jansen walked onto the Tonight Show stage. Johnny introduced him as the man who saved my life, though he never explained the full story. Richard performed for 8 minutes. The audience laughed. They cheered, and when he finished, Johnny stood up and hugged him. "You made it," Johnny whispered. "You finally made it." Richard died 2 months later. At his funeral, there were maybe 20 people, but Johnny Carson was one of them. He sat in the back, wearing sunglasses, and when they lowered the coffin into the ground, he stayed until everyone else had left. Years later, in one of his final interviews before his own death in 2005, Johnny was asked about the most important moment of his career. He did not mention the famous guests or the Emmy Awards or the millions of viewers. He mentioned a night in 1963 when a struggling comedian knocked on the wrong door at exactly the right time. Sometimes the people who save us are not famous. They are not powerful. They are just there when we need them most. And if this story reminded you that your life matters, that your moment is coming, that one conversation can change everything, then maybe you understand why I never forgot Richard Jansen. If you have ever felt like giving up, like you are out of chances, like nobody sees you, remember this. Someone out there needs you to keep going. Someone out there is waiting for you to knock on their door. Do not give up. Not tonight. Not ever.